Well, welcome to week 5 of INET3011W, the social impact of IT. This week we're going to talk about plagiarism and originality, making sure that we do understand, I think, the balance between academia and professional work environment, a little bit on the global scale as well, what it means to have your own work, and what it means to, maybe participate in something like open source where everything is available and you're asked to use it with certain limitations and guidelines and rules and licenses, but also, what it means to, use things maybe like from GitHub, and cutting and pasting. So talk a little bit about, what is plagiarism, where does it kind of sit, talk about how that might affect and be a part of an end user license agreement, a EULA as we call it, and as well as, when you are making notes of other people's work, making sure you cite it. And that can be anything from citing in a paper, but also in software. And a lot of times you'll see that at the top of some software code. It'll talk about the license, and then it'll talk about the contributions as well. So plagiarism is obviously just, to take others' work and pass it off as your own. And we all know that in the world of education, that's not a good thing. Because the point of education and the point of, learning in general is that you're given a topic, and based on that topic, there has to be some way to evaluate your, and we kind of look at it in 3 levels, right? Your ability to, from a knowledge perspective, can you explain it or redefine it? So if I was giving you, an apple's red, then you say the apple's red. There's also the idea that to analyze and look at, okay, this apple is red and this one's green, and I can discern the difference between them, but I also can, know what it's that it's different than a banana. But then there's kind of the third level, which is to actually use it in some way, shape, or form, and that's usually what we do in labs or even in papers, is to evaluate your ability to apply it. And so, going back to that apple analogy, how can you use an apple? Well, you can just eat it. You can make it into a pie. You can carve it. You can blah blah blah. You also know that it only has a shelf life of a certain amount of time. Put lemon on it, and it doesn't rot as fast. I mean, all the things that are really kind of in that advanced way. And that's really the point in, academia, is to understand that you have that knowledge, you have that wisdom, and you can apply it, where when you get in the professional world, most of the time, you can find the answer somewhere else. You can cut and paste things here and there. And from a coding perspective, there's tons of examples out there on the web, and people post that, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you get into licensed software, such as anything that would be in the open source community, the Apache, Mozilla, GNU, all that stuff, those are things that you need to be careful what you do, because sometimes you can, and this is kind of the norm, is that it's fine to take open source software, repackage it, use it in your code, do something different with it, and you're not necessarily passing it off as your own, but it is in your own offering, whether that's a web page or whether it's a mobile app or whatever. So it's kind of a delicate subject, but it goes kind of against the base principle of what we're trying to do in academia and what we do in the corporate world. So that's kind of the high level overview of it. But obviously there's more in the readings that go through that. An end user license agreement is kind of a catch-all phrase for things in the nature of using somebody's software. A lot of times we want to look at end user license agreements, and as I don't know, probably the last 5-10 years, the kind of the standard is to have the click through, right? You see some big huge banner thing come through, and you're so excited to get to the app, you just you have to accept this to move forward, and you just accept it. Nobody reads it. There's a lot of parodies and stories around that as well. So some of them I would be a little careful of, and some of them, obviously, if it's Apple, you probably know what they're after, and they're not going to do something malicious, but others can. So So this idea of, shrink wrap to click wrap. And so shrink wrap is, once you've opened the box, it's yours and you own it. It's your license. You got a key. It's only yours. You can't use it anywhere else, the whole 9 yards. But then, the click throughs are usually, you're accepting these terms, which, if you really read through those, the thing you should be very cognizant of is privacy and what they're doing with your data. And so we find many examples of that over time. And, whether it's some of the giants like Facebook and Google and the rest, and how they use data, there's goods and bads of it. I think we're getting to a point in privacy where I think things are getting a little too tight. Nobody wants to share anything, and we're not going to be able to really, understand. Perfect example of COVID. There's so many privacy laws that we can't get enough people to go into vaccination trials because of the privacy. But if that was a little lax, we could be much further along. So a lot of it is protecting the IP in that software, but it's also from fraudulent use. So it's no, you can't load it on 100 computers. It used to be that everybody would get a Windows operating system key and then go load it on 20 machines. There was never really any check. There was, before the internet, there really wasn't a way to check unless somebody physically audited. So, kind of that. Some of them get into ideas around the limitations of what you can use it for. So a lot of them are trying to make sure you're not, using it to do illegal acts, using it to transfer, illegal things, whether it's movies, photographs, whatever. But all of them have some form of limitations of, liability, warranty, all that. So, kind of saying, even if you sue me, you're not going to get that much. So always kind of a piece to it. And then citing sources, again, you're going to see a lot of this in this course around, citing, things to support your arguments. But I think there's also a lot in source code. There's things that we might see in, how things are packaged, even if you were to dig into your phone under general, there's always something about legal in there, and you can see how, they've kind of listed out everything in the world, hey, we use GCC somewhere, so now we got to put that license in there. And so there's a lot of different ways of thinking about it, but really what you're after is kind of this, covering your value and your assets. So if somebody comes to sue you and say, hey, you use my stuff, and you say, well, yeah, I said I did. It's right here. I cited it. It's either, part of something you contributed back to open source, or you, kind of licensed and used the way it should be. And then everything's good. So there are, I guess, a few different ways to think about it. So this week's to-dos is, going through the plagiarism case study and the discussion, and then revising and proofreading for assignment number 1.